The harsh words sliced through the desert air like a blade. "You're not cut out for this, honey. This isn't some glamour shoot." Every trainee on the flight line turned to stare at the woman in the crimson outfit. Lauren Evans, 31 years, old with flowing copper hair beneath her military cap and a clipboard she hadn't even opened yet. She remained motionless, her frame rigid as snickers and murmurs rippled through the assembled group like radio static. Captain Marcus Denton stepped forward, tall, decorated, and commanding attention effortlessly. His uniform was pristine, his mirrored aviators caught the desert sun, and his condescending grin, the type that made women feel insignificant, was directed squarely at her. "Listen up," he announced, his voice echoing off the hangar walls. "High heels, mini dresses, and makeup belong in nightclubs, not on airstrips, unless you're here to provide entertainment for the troops instead of flying alongside them." A collective gasp arose from several cadets. Lauren's face reddened, not from embarrassment, but from the rage she struggled to contain. "Sir, I'm here to pilot aircraft," she responded, her voice quiet but unwavering. "Oh, I'm sure you are." He moved closer, invading her personal space, his hand extended, brushing away a loose strand from her forehead without consent. His fingers lingered too long near her cheekbone. Lauren stayed perfectly still, but every fiber of her being went taut. "You don't have a place here, sweetheart," he whispered, as if they were alone. "But when you're done packing, I might have something for you. I appreciate women who understand hierarchy." The clipboard in Lauren's grip cracked from the pressure. Denton raised his voice again for everyone to hear. "You're finished, Evans. Immediately. Consider this your final runway. Walk." He spun around and strode away without a backward glance. When Marcus Denton turned his back and departed, leaving Lauren isolated amid judgmental stares and cruel laughter, what crossed your mind? Was he maintaining military standards or simply wielding his authority to humiliate a woman chasing her dreams? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Which side do you support in this situation? And if you believe someone's worth should never be determined by their appearance or bias, smash that like button and join the conversation. We're eager to hear your perspective, whether you agree or not. In the silence that remained, Lauren walked, past the other trainees, some averting their gaze, others smirking. One young man who appeared barely legal age muttered, "Maybe she should have been friendlier, could have lasted longer." Lauren maintained her pace without faltering. In her assigned dormitory, she settled on the bed's edge, hands shaking and stomach churning. She carefully removed the small silver replica of her father's pilot wings from inside her jacket and gazed at it like a treasured artifact from a bygone era. The space felt clinical and cold. Her father, James Evans, commercial aviator, honorable and steadfast, used to tell her the cockpit was the one place where a woman's voice carried equal weight to a man's, but that belonged to a different time, a different reality. What would his reaction be to today's events? She pondered. Would he still believe I belong in the sky? Tears didn't come. Not yet. That would happen later. A sharp rap at the door interrupted her thoughts. It swung open before she could summon the energy to respond. "You know, I've witnessed crash landings with more dignity than that spectacle outside," came the gravelly voice of Frank Dawson, the base's senior mechanic. He entered carrying a coffee thermos in one hand and an oil-stained cloth in the other, his expression somehow conveying, "I observed everything without passing judgment. Denton's still as pleasant as a splinter, isn't he?" Frank grumbled, setting down the thermos. "I swear that man dilutes his ethics with his protein drinks." Lauren attempted a smile, but it transformed into something resembling pain. "I don't believe my dismissal was performance-related," she whispered. Frank studied her momentarily. "No, you were dismissed because men like Denton panic when faced with women who refuse to be ornamental. You should have spoken up." Lauren's voice was barely audible. "I should have defended myself." "No. You handled it correctly. You preserved your dignity," Frank replied. "Besides, I've seen women scream and get physically removed. It never ends favorably for them." She examined her hands. So what happens now? Frank reached into his pocket and retrieved a small metal wrench, old, substantial, weathered by years of use, and placed it gently in her palm. Meet me at the hangar tonight. There's something I want to show you. Lauren looked puzzled. I'm being processed out. What's the purpose? Frank smiled without warmth. Because I've observed you. You listen to engines like a musician hears symphony. You don't need their approval to know you were meant to fly. That evening, when the base was quiet and stars stretched across the Nevada desert like distant promises, Lauren stood at Hangar C's entrance, the wrench still clutched in her hand. The words, the touch, the smirk, they resonated in her bones like interference. But so did her father's voice. Keep your eyes on the horizon, sweetheart. That's where you belong. She stepped inside the hangar, and the door sealed behind her, with a definitive thud. The sky hadn't seen the last of her. Not yet. The nighttime hangar didn't hum. It pulsed with life. Steel framework echoed Lauren's every footstep, her boots tapping softly against the polished concrete. Frank Dawson walked ahead, his stride unhurried and confident, like someone who had long since accepted breaking regulations when it served justice. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with hydraulic fluid, burnt rubber and aged metal, a scent that transported Lauren to simpler times, crouched beside her father beneath their weathered Cessna, passing him tools while he cursed softly at stubborn bolts. The memory provided momentary warmth. Frank activated a series of overhead work lights. A white canvas covered something enormous in the center of the floor. The shape underneath was unmistakable. A full-scale simulator modeled exactly on the F-35. Lightning II. Lauren stopped abruptly. You brought me here to commit a crime. Frank's only response was to grab the canvas and pull it back, revealing the sleek cockpit with panels glowing soft blue in standby mode. You're not committing anything, Evans. You're restoring equilibrium. Call it corrective maintenance. She stared at the cockpit. If we're caught, then I lose my job, he said matter-of-factly. And you? You're already headed for the exit. Nothing left for them to steal except your self-respect, and you've let Denton walk away with enough of that already. Lauren flinched. Don't remind me, Frank's tone gentled. Listen, I'm not doing this for thrills. I knew your father. He and I served together at Barksdale in the 90s. That man had magical hands. Flew a transport through a sandstorm with one engine and a busted attitude indicator. He saved my life once. Lauren's lips parted. He never mentioned that. He wouldn't. That was his character. Quiet strength. The same quality I recognize in you. I watched you rewire a guidance board last month faster than our top technicians. Hell, I even saw you pilot the old Hawker through crosswinds that scared off the others. Denton witnessed it too. That's why he eliminated you. He doesn't fear incompetence. He fears what he can't dominate. Lauren ran her hand along the simulators, sighed. It felt warm, alive, as if awaiting her touch. Frank checked his watch. You have 2 hours before the automated logs reactivate. Enough time to discover what you're truly capable of. She hesitated. I haven't trained on this model officially. That's the beauty of natural ability, kid, Frank said, gesturing toward the pilot's seat. It doesn't wait for authorization. Inside the simulator, Lauren seated herself and drew a breath so deep her chest ached. Her fingers hovered over the switches, identical to ones she'd memorized during stolen moments with her father's manuals. She initiated the startup sequence from muscle memory. Lights blazed, gauges spun to life. The virtual turbine's hum built, beneath her like destiny's whisper. Her reflection in the glass canopy appeared older than her years, exhausted, angry, but alert. Tower, this is Sparrow requesting clearance, she whispered with a slight smile. The simulator responded with the deep rumble of simulated takeoff thrust. Lauren's hands danced across the controls, left rudder, nose attitude, pitch adjustment, throttle modulation. Her body responded before conscious thought engaged. Frank monitored performance from the terminal, his eyes widening as he watched her stabilize mid-roll, switch to radar lock, and execute a flawless evasive maneuver through simulated cloud coverage. "Damn," he muttered. "She flies like she was born in the cockpit." Lauren's pulse raced. This wasn't training. This was breathing. Minutes turned to hours. 3 failed combat sequences, 4 corrections, 5 increasingly aggressive maneuvers that left her hands bleeding from gripping the controls too tightly. Still, she pressed forward. She failed the 6th run at Mach 1.3 when hydraulic systems failed mid-loop. The system flashed red. Mission aborted. She stared at the failure notification. Frank approached, placing a hand on the seat back. "That failure wasn't your fault. That malfunction point. It's connected to a glitch in the software Denton personally requested." Lauren turned her head. "He's modifying simulators?" Frank nodded grimly. "He's been adjusting the scoring algorithms too, especially for the upcoming final demonstration. Ever wonder how some of these golden boys pass so effortlessly?" Her mind reeled. "You're telling me he's sabotaging cadets who don't conform?" "Only the ones that pose a threat," Frank said. "Your scores, your records, wiped from the system the same night your evaluation mysteriously glitched." Lauren stood slowly, her hands trembling, not from fear this time, but from fury and determination. "So what's our next move?" she asked. Frank opened a nearby storage locker and retrieved a folder marked "Confidential." "Now," he said, "we show them what happens when they underestimate the wrong woman." He handed her the folder. Inside was a complete dossier on the F-35 Lightning II's upcoming demonstration aircraft, serial number, call sign, pre-programmed flight patterns, and pilot assignment. Captain Marcus Denton. Lauren stared at the final line for a long moment. Then her eyes narrowed. "I want that aircraft," she declared. That night, as Lauren slipped quietly back to her quarters, her heart thundered like a jet's afterburner at full power. The sky had always called to her, and now the stars themselves seemed within reach. Tomorrow, the world would see her differently. But first, she had to weather the storm. Morning light bathed the airfield in dusty gold. Lauren sat alone on a bench near the motor pool, feigning disinterest with lukewarm coffee and a maintenance manual. She wasn't supposed to be here anymore. Technically, her name had been erased from the active cadet roster, but Frank Dawson had called in enough favors to keep her within the perimeter, hidden just beyond official scrutiny. She glanced across the tarmac at Hangar 7, where the F-35 Lightning II demonstration unit FX-119 rested under covering. The aircraft bore a nickname stenciled near the cockpit. Judgment. Subtle. She barely noticed the approaching tall figure until his shadow fell across her manual. "You're Evans, correct?" a voice inquired. Soft, male, uncertain. Lauren looked. Up. Cadet Caleb Voss. Perfect jawline, pale complexion, pristine boots, son of Admiral Ronald Voss. She recognized him from orientation drills before her removal. He'd maintained his distance then. Now he stood like someone debating between conversation and retreat. "I was," she replied. He hesitated, then sat beside her like someone accustomed to being obeyed, not ignored. "You flew the F-35 simulator last night." Lauren remained silent. "I monitored the diagnostic terminal for Hangar C," Caleb added. "I saw the readouts before the logs were deleted." Now she turned slowly. "And what do you want?" Caleb appeared conflicted. "Denton instructed me to watch you. Said you might attempt something reckless before departing." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Are you here to inform on me?" He produced a small black recording device. Without breaking eye contact, he switched it off. "No," he said quietly. "I'm here because something's wrong. Your evaluation scores, the equipment failures that never get documented. And Denton, he's fixated on this upcoming demonstration." Lauren's voice turned icy. "He altered my simulator. Are you aware of that?" "I suspected," Caleb admitted. "I've seen him override scores for other cadets, mainly those without military pedigree." "People like me," she said bitterly. "Exactly," he confirmed. But your data last night, it was perfect. Combat runs, evasive maneuvers, system recovery. At Mach 1, I've been attempting the same inverted descent for 3 weeks. I can't manage it. You executed it on your first clean attempt. Lauren took a long sip of her cold coffee, then regarded him again, this time not with suspicion, but consideration. I'm not here to impress anyone, she said. I just want the truth revealed, for my sake and my father's. Your father? Caleb trailed off. James Evans, she said quietly. Former Delta captain. He died awaiting a transplant. His wings were revoked after a crash he didn't cause. Same type of override. Same paperwork signatures. I recognize them now. Denton authorized both. Caleb's expression shifted, shock, then anger. Wait, you're saying Denton was behind your father's incident? Lauren nodded once. And now he's piloting judgment in front of the Pentagon Oversight Board. Full circle. A long silence stretched between them. Then Caleb straightened. What do you need? She blinked. What? I'm not proud of how I got here, he admitted. But if you're going to expose Denton, you can't do it alone. You'll need assistance. Someone. On the inside, Lauren studied him carefully. And you're volunteering? He shrugged. Let's just say I'd prefer to graduate from this place without being part of a lie. By evening, their plan was set. Frank had obtained a data device that could discreetly clone the mission programming from the demonstration jet. If Denton had tampered with the system, the clone would reveal it. Caleb had access to hangar scheduling logs, and Lauren, she would fly. But that night, as she slipped into Hangar C again for another practice session, she wasn't alone. Lieutenant Maya Alvarez stood by the simulator, arms crossed. Lauren froze. The lieutenant was known for her precision and cold logic. She didn't tolerate misconduct, and certainly not unauthorized flight time. I know what we're doing, Alvarez said coolly. I watched the footage. You're not just flying, Evans. You're commanding that aircraft. Lauren's heart sank. Then I guess you're here to stop it. But Alvarez didn't move to shut down the terminal. Instead, she said, You know what? This simulator was scheduled for next Friday. The demonstration, Lauren answered. Correct. Denton will use this exact programming setup, minus a few modifications. He's had the text input manually. Lauren looked up sharply. You know about that. Alvarez's gaze didn't waver. I know more than I reveal. Then why are you here? The lieutenant stepped forward and placed a slip of paper on the console. Access code 472 Alpha. He's careless about logging out, she said. Use it wisely. Lauren stared at her, stunned. Alvarez continued. Denton humiliated me in front of the board 2 years ago, called me a quota hire. I didn't have evidence then. Maybe you'll find it now. Then she turned to leave. Lieutenant, Lauren called after her. Alvarez paused at the door. Why me? Because you don't fly like someone trying to make a statement. You fly like someone who is the statement. That night, Lauren launched into simulation after simulation. Caleb joined her partway through, watching silently as she cut through clouds, barrel-rolled at terminal velocities, and navigated evasive loops with precision that surpassed even instructor standards. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. When Lauren climbed out of the cockpit 2 hours later, sweat-soaked and trembling, Caleb handed her a small drive. This is Denton's schedule for pre-flight inspections. He'll be alone with the plane. Tomorrow night. That's our opportunity. Lauren took the drive, clutching it like a weapon. Tomorrow, she'd confront the man who had stolen her opportunity, tarnished her father's name, and nearly erased her. But now she had a team and fire in her soul. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the hangar door rolled open with a deep mechanical groan. Lauren crouched behind a line of service carts, shrouded in shadow. Her eyes locked on the figure stepping through the entrance. Captain Marcus Denton. His boots echoed confidently against the concrete floor. He moved with practiced authority, shoulders squared, chest forward, power draped over his uniform like armor. He was unaware of being observed. Denton approached the F-35 Lightning II demonstration aircraft nicknamed Judgment, still covered by a thin, protective tarp. He circled the jet once, tablet in hand, muttering technical adjustments as he tapped the screen. He paused at the left stabilizer and signaled the on-duty mechanic. Frank Dawson emerged from the side bay, wiping grease from his palms. "Evening, Captain." Denton barely glanced up. "Execute the override diagnostic on flight assist. I want the threshold recalibrated to 3.5% below standard response curve." Frank hesitated, feigning confusion. "That's not factory specification." Denton shot him a sideways look. "Neither was landing my last mission in crosswinds off a mountainside." "Adjust it." "Yes, sir," Frank said, moving to the terminal with deliberate slowness. His hands moved across the keyboard, but not before discreetly inserting a small USB device into the mainframe's auxiliary port. The device began copying. Denton leaned over the F-35's cockpit canopy, speaking more to himself than Frank. "They'll be monitoring every control response Friday. I don't want to impress them. I want to dominate them." Frank didn't respond, but under the terminal screen's glare, his jaw clenched. Denton turned suddenly. "You still processing that exit paperwork for Evans, or did she finally slink away like she should have?" Frank didn't look up. "Last I checked, she was packing." "Good," Denton muttered. "She didn't belong here, never did." As the calibration ticked upward, the data cloning progress bar behind the main screen crept toward 100%. Denton circled the aircraft one final time. "Clean this area. When you're finished, I want the brass thinking this jet was born perfect." He departed without another word. Frank exhaled only when the door clicked shut. He retrieved the USB, slipped it into his boot, and shut down the diagnostic console. For several minutes, he rearranged tools to appear busy. Then he walked casually toward the corner where Lauren waited. She stood as he reached her, her breath caught somewhere between rage and disbelief. "You got it?" she whispered. He nodded and handed her the drive. Every adjustment, every illegal modification, enough to destroy his career twice over. Lauren's hands closed tightly around the device. "I wanted to hit him," she admitted, her voice a trembling thread. "Just once, right in the face." Frank gave a grim smile. "Your flyover will hit harder." The next morning, the team assembled in the back of the storage annex near the airfield's west wing. Caleb unrolled a detailed base layout map with shift rotations, security zones, and flight line access pathways highlighted in red and yellow. "Here," he said, pointing to the maintenance corridor behind Hangar 6. "Between 1345 and 1405, there's a 20-minute surveillance gap. The cameras will be offline for scheduled firmware updates." "That's our window?" Lauren asked. Caleb nodded. "It's not perfect. You'll still need to pass through Checkpoint B on foot. If anyone recognizes you—" "They won't," Frank interrupted. "She'll be in technician coveralls, and I've got her access badge ready." Lauren exhaled slowly. "What about the plane?" "Ready," Frank said. "I triple-checked the systems this morning and replaced Denton's sabotage with baseline factory settings. He'll think it's still optimized, but once he's airborne, he'll be wrestling with ghosts." Alvarez stepped into the room then, quiet as a shadow. "You'll need this," she said, handing Lauren a badge with her photo labeled under a different name. "Laura Benson, Engine Calibration Assistant. This will get you through the first 2 security layers. After that, you're on your own." Lauren took the badge. "Why are you doing this?" Alvarez's eyes didn't flinch. "Because I've spent a decade pretending men like Denton didn't still run this world. It's time one of them got grounded." That afternoon, the airfield buzzed with preparations. Catering trucks arrived in formation. A temporary grandstand was erected near the flight observation deck, and VIPs from the Pentagon, contractors from Lockheed Martin, and media crews were filing in. Denton strutted along the runway, his uniform sharp as ever, his smile relaxed. He didn't notice how Lauren watched him from behind a fuel transport, wearing dark glasses and a cap pulled low. She memorized his pace, his confidence, his arrogance. Then she climbed down and slipped through the hangar corridor, with quiet calm that hadn't existed 2 days ago. Inside the prep bay, Frank met her by the aircraft's nose. "She's fueled, sealed, and angry," he said, patting the fuselage. Lauren glanced at the markings, judgment still gleaming beneath the glass. But her focus was on the cockpit. "She doesn't want him up there," she said softly. Frank looked at her, surprised. "She wants someone who listens." He gave her a firm nod. "Then show her you're the one." Lauren climbed into the cockpit. As her body settled into the seat, it felt like memory. The controls hummed under her fingertips like old nerves remembering their purpose. She tapped the comm line. "Frank here." His voice came through the earpiece. "Tell me again why this is insane." "Because you're about to steal an F-35 from a government event under the noses of half the military." Lauren smiled. "That's what I thought." She adjusted her helmet. Inhale, exhale, then silence. Outside, the crowd began to applaud. Captain Denton climbed the ladder to his own aircraft, completely unaware that someone else had just slipped into the sky to rewrite everything he thought he owned. The roar of afterburners tore through the Nevada sky. From the grandstand, generals, contractors, and political observers tilted their heads upward as Captain Marcus Denton's F-35 Lightning II, call-sign Judgment, thundered off the runway in a steep, aggressive climb. Cameras flashed, applause rippled. His canopy glinted in the sunlight, a perfect silhouette of a decorated pilot in his moment. What they didn't see yet was the second F-35 lifting quietly from the auxiliary runway behind Hangar 9. No clearance, no formal flight plan, just Lauren Evans in a borrowed uniform and a cockpit that now felt like a second skin. Her hands moved with surgical precision across the controls. The screen read FX-120 Sparrow. Frank had named the jet in her honor when he programmed the systems that morning. "It flies like it knows me," she thought. In the tower, a technician suddenly leaned toward the radar screen. "Control, we've got an unscheduled aircraft at Euro 40 heading southeast. Call sign FX-120. "Negative," said the shift commander. "No second bird on today's manifest. Run ID ping." The system hesitated. Then came the response. "Pilot Lauren Evans. Authorization Coleman 73-9er. Someone cursed on the comm line. Denton's voice crackled through. "Tower, I'm picking up an unauthorized craft matching demo configuration. Confirm. This is not part of the event." No immediate reply. Then from the control booth came a third voice, deep, smooth, and amused. "This is General Robert Hanley. Let's see what she can do." The tension in the tower dropped into silence. Lauren moved her jet into a higher altitude band just beyond Denton's formation. The sky was hers now, endless, electric, unforgiving. She tilted gently to the right, and the jet responded like it was dancing, not flying. Then she heard him. "Evans." Denton's voice was sharp, stunned. "What the hell are you doing?" Lauren switched to private channel, her tone calm. "Finishing the demonstration. You've had your stage. Now it's my turn. Get off the frequency. You're going to get yourself grounded permanently." "You already tried that," she replied. "Didn't work." She flipped the F-35 into an inverted roll, skimming just above Denton's wing. On the ground, spectators gasped. A collective realization rippled through the crowd. This wasn't an accident. This was defiance. Up in the cockpit, Denton gritted his teeth, his hands tightening on the throttle. "So she wants a show," he thought. He dropped altitude and initiated a corkscrew maneuver. A signature move he'd perfected. Only this time something went wrong. His control stick jerked, the jet lagged, sluggish and misaligned. The responsiveness wasn't what he expected. Panic licked the edges of his instincts. Come on," he hissed, adjusting trim. Back in her cockpit, Lauren saw it happen. His stabilizers overcompensated. His bank angle exceeded optimal range. He was seconds from falling into an uncontrolled spin. She keyed her mic again. "Throttle to 40%. E-stick left 2 to grow. You're fighting your own adjustments, not the aircraft." He ignored her. The spin began, a slow, sickening roll that pulled him downward like a hawk crashing from the sky. "Denton," she shouted, "listen to me!" Nothing. Then, at the last possible second, he complied. The jet steadied. Barely. Lauren exhaled. For a heartbeat, the sky stood still. And then she dove. Her F-35 cut across the air like a blade of light. She executed a mirror pass, flying upside down just feet above the top of Denton's jet, pulling into a tight vertical climb that shot her directly in front of the crowd. The field erupted. In the tower, General Hanley leaned closer to the glass. "Who the hell trained her?" Frank Dawson, listening in from the maintenance bay, muttered to himself, "Her father did." Lauren's voice returned to the open frequency, clear and unshakable. "This is Sparrow. I request permission to complete the demonstration sequence." Silence. Then Hanley came back, voice gravel-thick and certain. "Permission granted." She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She flew. Over the next 6 minutes, Lauren guided the F-35 through maneuvers even seasoned pilots rarely attempted: high G barrel rolls, elevation drops, horizontal flare-outs just above the tree line. Her body withstood the pressure, her mind flowed with the aircraft, and her heart burned with something long buried: justice. In his own cockpit, Denton remained quiet. He no longer tried to compete. He knew the demonstration was over, and she had won. On her final pass, Lauren steadied her jet and spoke. "To Tower and all present, I dedicate this flight to Captain James Evans, a man who flew with honor and whose legacy will no longer be forgotten." On the ground, Frank wiped his eyes with a greased rag. In the tower, General Hanley stood slowly, and Captain Denton, he reached for the comm switch with a shaking hand, then set it down without saying a word. Lauren landed as the sky turned gold again, and when her wheels touched down with a whisper, the airfield erupted, not in silence, from absence of feeling, but in awe. The briefing room smelled of cold coffee, metal, and reckoning. Lauren Evans sat alone at the end of a long mahogany table, her hair still damp with sweat, her uniform slightly rumpled, boots dusty from the tarmac, but she sat tall, the calm after the firestorm. Outside the thick glass windows, the F-35 Sparrow cooled in the open air like a lion resting after the hunt. A side door clicked open. 3 men in pressed uniforms stepped in. One wore 4 stars on his collar. General Robert Hanley, Oversight Committee, Department of Defense. Beside him, a gray-suited civilian from the Pentagon and a legal officer with a rigid jaw. They took their seats silently. Then the general spoke. "Well, Ms. Evans, that was either the boldest flight I've seen in 2 decades or the most career-ending stunt ever pulled on a U.S. air base. Which is it?" Lauren looked him in the eye. "That depends, sir. Are we judging the flight or the lies that tried to bury it?" Hanley's eyes narrowed, not in anger but curiosity. From his folder he pulled out a printout. Digital flight data marked with Lauren's call sign. "I've reviewed your telemetry. Your maneuvering was precise, efficient, professional." He paused. "But you had no authorization." "I had no choice," she answered. "Captain Denton manipulated my evaluations, rewrote performance scores, sabotaged simulation modules. I couldn't prove it until now." The legal officer raised a brow. "And what makes you think you've proven it?" Lauren turned to the door behind her. It opened. Lieutenant Maya Alvarez entered with calm, steady stride. Behind her, Frank Dawson, still in his grease-streaked uniform, and Caleb Voss in full cadet dress stepped in. Caleb carried a black case. They took seats at Lauren's side. Alvarez nodded.